when we're doing mobility work, we're really communicating with the body, the muscles, the joints, the nervous system. But all the joints have receptors and nerves that are connected to the brain. So it's about we need the body to feel comfortable enough to give us that change. What is up, guys? Welcome back to the Deskbound Therapy podcast. I'm your host, David London, and this show is all about empowering active desk-bound adults how to improve their health, fitness, posture, and mobility. If you tuned into the last episode, I was talking with my boy, TFD Fitness, also known as Steve McCollum, and this was a really great episode I wanted to lead into the new year about really, setting the proper habits, the proper goals, making sure you have the proper plans and mindset in place to really start off the year successfully. So if you didn't check out that episode, I really want you to encourage you to go and check that out. It was a really awesome episode that's going to teach you some things like, how to stay consistent, how to know if you're putting in the right amount of work, how to stay motivated, how to find a supportive community that's going to help you with not only your fitness, but your mobility goals. And in today's episode, I wanted to talk about some of the common mistakes people make with their mobility training to help you address some deficits, such as, why you're not making progress or why you feel like you're doing mobility or you're stretching and your body feels the same day after day after day. And the common thing is it really comes down to two things is it's really not just going through the motions and doing a specific exercise when you're doing mobility, but I find people lack the understanding that you really need to understand the movement you're doing, the joint you're trying to improve the mobility in, so you can really understand and really utilize the full range of motion of the joint. For example, like a lot of the times, let's just start off with the shoulder. If you're lacking the understanding and the awareness of how the shoulder is designed to move, and you're just kind of going through the motions and following every random stretch you see online, you're going to have a hard time really having enough intuition and body awareness to know if you're doing it properly. For example, the four movements of the shoulder, four or five, we got flexion, extension, abduction, adduction, external rotation, and internal rotation. But if you don't really understand those movements or really what's occurring to create those, it'll be hard for you to really, one, self-assess kind of how your body and how your joints are moving, and two, kind of troubleshoot along the way. Like if you have a specific movement that caused you to some discomfort at the gym or some sort of dysfunction, etc., or mobility restriction, but you're not really understanding what the body needs in order to get there, it can be tough. So really just start to, understand how your body's moving so you can understand where your restrictions are, and that way you can take specific action in terms of your mobility, because then you're just going to be stuck, doing a bunch of random exercises versus being like, all right, I'm empowered now. I understand, what exercises are starting to work for my body and starting to help with some of my nagging areas versus just like, if you don't have the understanding, you can do a routine, you can feel amazing. But what happens when your shit starts to hurt and you start to feel uncomfortable, but you don't really understand, what exercises and what movements were really making that key difference to help you improve your mobility. So whether, something I do with my clients to combat this is I make sure that, they understand the game plan. We're on the same game plan. These are the things we're going to address. These are the deficits we have. And this is what we're going to do to, I want you to make sure you have a full understanding of really how the routine is designed to help your body move better. So, long term, you can really have the tools and the skill set, long term, you could become your own mobility coach, because that's really where I want people to get to the point where they understand their body enough and their restrictions, so long term they're able to have a wide variety of exercises they can use to stay more mobile. And so that's really like it, and it's definitely tough because I found like I've been doing yoga for so many years, and I've been coaching mobility for maybe the two combined over 10 years now. And I find it really does take a long time to develop that body awareness, and it does require an unprecedented amount of consistency, motivation and discipline. But mostly over consistency, it's like you really have to fall in love with the process of doing mobility in order to see it out long enough to see any long lasting change. And I would argue even it requires a bit more commitment than, you know, general just going and pumping some weights in the gym, because, the results are a lot more delayed. Like if you've been sitting, at your desk for 10, 20 years and you have never done any stretching or mobility, it can be hard to get to that point where you notice yourself making the changes. So really just, you have to understand why you want to get there in the first place. You have to understand how the body moves, and you understand the steps in place to get there. And then once you have all that in place, you'll be successful. Just really, not saying you're gonna do mobility and just do a minute here or there, but it's really about, coming up with a game plan that works for you, which is something I do with my clients. Is we got to understand, your sleep, your nutrition, your workout routines, your stress, your schedule, to see how we can integrate more mobility into your lifestyle, so it's actually realistic to create some sustainable change long term. You know, as opposed to, you got to do an hour a day of mobility, and you got to go to the gym for an hour, and you got to eat healthy and sleep well. When in reality, if we can properly assess your body, working together, we can create a lot faster results in a lot smaller period of time, just by really assessing how you're moving. So if you find, you're doing mobility, but you've never really had, anyone look at your joints or really assess you from that holistic point of view, because I find, you can go lie down on a treatment table, and someone can passively move around your body. But the way I kind of do things differently with my clients I work with, and I'm sure you've heard me talk about it on previous episodes, is that I like to take a holistic view. I like to look at how you move overall as a human, how much control you have, how much you can actually move your body versus something external moving your body for you, because then we can really understand where your movement capacities are. So like when I'm assessing, I'm not sure I've spoken about this in the past, but the DBT framework is assess, mobilize, stabilize, and strengthen. So I'm going to be looking at all those things with my clients, because often it's more than just mobility. We got to look at your mobility, your stability, and your strength. And it's really about understanding that cohesive pattern about how much you need for your specific body and each of those areas. It's kind of like, if we don't have that understanding of what you need, based on the assessment, it's like pulling a piece of paper from all four corners, but one's in balance, and we're just tugging towards maybe more flexibility, but what we do need is more strength and stability in the joint. So it's really about, understanding all these things, as well as figuring out how to put it together. And I found, in the past, when I was just, relying specifically on static stretching and yoga, I found I was good in that facet, but I was pulling too much in the other directions, and it wasn't balancing out and enhancing my workouts. Rather, rather it was just, something extra I was doing, but they weren't really working well and communicating together. So I find, by following that DBT framework, assess, mobilize, stabilize, and strengthen, we're actually able to, use this to enhance our, understanding and our awareness, like I've been talking about, so we can understand, have a better mindset towards, improving mobility and understanding what's going on with the body, versus if we're just, like I said, it's all about awareness, understanding, taking actions, and starting to see results. So that's like a framework I take my clients with, and we're constantly, going through that, whether it be, them at when they're doing their routines, keeping that in mind on a day to see if they need any modifications, or it's when we're reassessing, whether it's reassessing after every, training period. But I find having that has really helped me make things easier for us to stay accountable and actually see results, because we can kind of adjust those parameters versus, I'm going to do this hour yoga class, and hopefully the instructor is going to, give me something that's going to address my specific needs, versus like, we're doing dedicated mobility work that's actually going to improve the quality of range of motion in the joint and really stretch the deep, joint capsule, and actually create more space for movement, as opposed to, I'm just going to stretch this muscle, take a few deep breaths here, and hope my body, maintains that range of motion, versus, giving it a reason. Like if you're, if you find like your effort and your intensity is too low in terms of your mobility, then you're not going to give your body enough reason to create change. Like you have to understand that when we're doing mobility work, we're really communicating with the body, the muscles, the joints, the nervous system, but all the joints have receptors and nerves that are connected to the brain. So it's about, we need the body to feel comfortable enough to give us that change. So that requires, sometimes a lot of hard work and effort in uncomfortable positions to build strength to make them more less uncomfortable long term.
Hi, my name is Rene Diaz and I am a software developer, which means I have a very sedentary 9 to 5 work routine. So we did the assessment. David helped me out, assess my mobility, my posture, and he prepared a work routine for me, like several different workouts. Work out 4 to 5 times a week. It turned out to be a great result in the end. Like, mobility was definitely the biggest takeout from me in this process. Once I started doing the mobility routines with David, everything started to click, and my shoulders began to sit better. Rotator cuff movers started to fix. Everything started to feel a lot better when doing overhead movements. Pull-up strength improved a lot, and without pain, because that was an issue that I was experiencing. So I had a lot of pain in my back whenever, like, working up my upper body. So yeah, I mean, the biggest takeout from me from this process was the mobility work that David prepared for me, and this is something that I will definitely take forward in like as I continue to work out. So if any of you are feeling in pain, or are you training through pain, I strongly recommend you get in touch with David, and like he's a great resource for guys who will prepare tailor-made routines for you, and will be able to assess personally what is the problem in your specific case. So if you're a lifter, or you have a 9 to 5 that involves a lot of sitting, I strongly recommend hitting him up so he can prepare something for you and keep your posture and your body working well. Thank you.
Really, exposing yourself to lots of different positions, whether it be building strength in overhead shoulder flexion, building strength in the bottom of a squat, building strength in the deadlift, building strength in your ankles. It really comes down to, allowing the body to feel comfortable in these positions. And then over time, lots of years, lots of hours working your mobility. Not to say it takes that long, but it does take, a good amount of effort. You're gonna get to the point where you naturally start to be like, whoa, I start to feel like I'm naturally flexible. I've never felt this way my entire life. And it does get to that point, but there's a lot of stepping stones to take. But as I've been saying the whole time, it's really just, having that plan is so huge. Like, I don't just, half-ass it. I have my own routines. I have my own things I need to do. I create a plan, because if we don't have a plan, we don't have any measurable data. And without any, anything we're measuring, we're just guessing. So I find you need to have that plan in place, know when you're doing it, what you're doing, and breaking it down to the, the exact reps and sets. So, we can take out the guesswork, and we can really just focus on, getting results with the mobility. And I find that's something that I help a lot of people do, is make it so, we have that plan in place. We know what kind of results to expect. It's just a matter of really just, staying accountable to the plan and going through it to see the results you need. But anyways, the next thing I wanted to share with you guys is another reason you're not making progress with your mobility. And like I said, it's kind of tied to the last point in terms of like intensity and effort. If every time you're doing your mobility work, you're just going to the same place as you were last time, it's like digging a hole, filling it up with sand, and then digging back to the exact same spot the next day and the next day and the next day. You need to slowly and progressively work deeper and deeper into your end range of motion. I'm not saying force it to where you're uncomfortable, but if you just, say for example, you can do a back bend, and it's, it's a little bit flat at the top, and the next day you keep working on your back bend and your back bend, and you're just staying like that, versus if you're slowly working on inch by inch, getting a little bit more extension in your back and getting a bit more of a C shape. That's when you start to make results. But if you're afraid to really approach the end range of motion, start to get uncomfortable, be comfortable being uncomfortable there within a reasonable amount. Ideally, you want to have your greatest, safest effort in terms of intensity. But if you're never really approaching that point, you're never really going to push the needle forward in terms of your mobility. And often this can be attributed to the fact that you're just not giving your body enough time to open up to get into that position. If you go into 100% intensity of a stretch, or even 70% in the first minute to 30 seconds, your body's going to be afraid and it's going to sense injury. So you really need to spend the time in the positions. Like I hang out between 40 to 60% intensity, and I slowly let my body and my tissues get more comfortable. Again, it's an active process. So, for example, say you're trying to improve your forward fold and you can't reach your toes, where forward fold is sitting on the ground, bending your whole body forward into flexion, and then reaching towards the feet. And if you find yourself, really just, grabbing onto your legs and yanking yourself in that position, it's going to be uncomfortable and you're not going to want to do it. Trust me. Like, especially for some of the more intense stretches, such as the hamstrings and the groins, there's a lot more sensitivity there. If you just yank on that and rush into it, you're not going to want to do mobility and you're going to have a negative relationship with yourself and with those positions. So instead, take some time, you know, often 2 minutes in a position, slowly, progressively focusing on the breath, focusing on the core engagement, working deeper into the position and allowing yourself to take time to get to that end range. So instead of giving yourself 10, 15 exercises to do, maybe pick two or three, but really, take the time to work into the position. Take the time to allow your body to adapt to it. And then that way, if you do this over time, you actually are going to be increasing your range of motion versus maintaining. Because far too many people out there are just maintaining their range of motion, but they're not working on developing strength and really pushing that needle forward. So if you do this and you spend the time and you actually get towards your end range, that's when you're going to start to, start emptying the sand out of the hole and start to, inch by inch, taking a grain out and a grain out. And eventually, you have more range of motion. So I hope that analogy was helpful. That's something I do. And say the thing, we're doing something that isn't so much involved. Stretching, the same thing could be, imagine we're doing a cat cow spinal flexion and extension. Instead of being like when I'm moving, I'm moving really fast and I'm noticing, you know, some of the segments of the spine aren't moving well. It's the same idea. Instead of moving fast and being, and say you, for example, I got this question from the client the other day in my program. He's like, David, when you perform this exercise in the video, you do a really good job at it, but I can't do that exercise because I don't have as much control as you. And I thought it brought up a great point. It was a good teaching opportunity. I was like, that's just to demonstrate how to do it properly and what you should be looking for in terms of execution. But I don't ever want you to be like, I can't do this because I don't have that much mobility. Because you have to remember, you have to start somewhere. You have to start taking the sand out of the hole to get to where you want to be, to get to the gold on the other side. So don't be discouraged if you're doing an exercise and you feel like you don't have enough mobility to do it, but set that intention of, I just want to work until whatever my end range of motion is, hang out there, try to activate my muscles and come the other way. So even if you're only just moving a little bit, work on improving your little bit day by day, inch by inch, and eventually, work with what you have and build control what you have. Otherwise, you'll never really get to reach your movement potential. So that's a big one. It's just slowing down, taking the time, being in the present moment, doing your mobility work. And that's really what's going to help you long term make progress. And maybe once you get to the point, like right now, I'm more focused on maintaining the mobility I have because I feel like I have enough that's functional for me and for my training every day in day-to-day life. But that's not to mean I never go near my end range. I'm just more comfortable being there because I've developed strength in these positions. So like you don't always need to be in the improving mindset, but you have to understand, the other factors, like how much training you're doing, how much are you sitting, where your mobility is now. Because we have to remember too, like if we're not really approaching the end range consistently, the body's not going to see the need to get there, which is why I advocate for, doing mobility every day, getting the brain and the body comfortable, being in full range of motion, being comfortable in these positions. So you don't necessarily, need to work on getting past there, but I always recommend people, move their body and all the joints through the available range every day. Because one, it's gonna become ingrained and it's gonna be something you do into your lifestyle. But two, it's just gonna eventually, lead to you doing mobility more often, you being in the habit, and you starting to see the results you want to see, which is what's important at the end of the day. Mobility can help you train pain free, help you move better, help you improve your posture, help you feel more confident and feel more grounded in your body. So mobility is something you're looking at improving in 2022, or if you're tired of sitting at your desk with shoulder pain, neck pain, back pain, if you're tired of doing deadlifts and tweaking your back every week, or you're tired of having knee pain or hip pain in your squats, or you just, want to move better because you're getting pain playing, bending over and playing with your kids. Those are all great reasons to want to improve your mobility. And, I would love to work together. You know, I'm open to chatting to anyone who listens to the podcast. If you're interested in seeing if we're a good fit to work together, if you want to learn more about my programs, just send me a message. I'd be happy to jump on a free, free coaching call with you to, create a game plan, understand where you are and where you want to be. And again, there's no obligations to, sign up or work with me, but just feel free to send me a message on Instagram at Deskbound Therapy, or email me, David at deskboundtherapy.com. Just message me online coaching. Say you're interested in, jumping on a discovery call. I'm happy to, just chat, see where we're at, learn more about you and your goals to see if I'm able to help you out. Cause this is the year, guys. We're in 2022. We got to start, really prioritizing mobility. We got to start, setting the example. This is going to be the year, you're able to move pain free. So feel free to reach out. Even if you have any questions, I would love to hear from you. I'd love to connect with my listeners. And until next time, thank you so much for listening to the show. Honestly, the show has been growing so much, and I appreciate each and every one of you. So keep spreading the word, keep sharing the Deskbound Therapy message. And as always, please leave me a review on Apple Podcasts. I listen to them all, and I do appreciate it. It makes my day every time I see one there. As always, thanks so much, your host, David London, and stay tuned for the next episode.